it's fine if you like do an overnighter show for a weekend.
Mhm.
But when you start to do an overnighter show for like 3.5 weeks, and you never see the sun and you're like flipping your whole schedule and your whole life, it's really hard, especially when you have things that are on at normal times that you are obligated to do.
Even more so maybe in 2019, which I think we can move on to now, because to me, when I look back at your history and I look at your Wikipedia or whatever, and I see the events that you worked, I think 2017, obviously your starting year, you do these decent shows, but whatever. 2018, you're starting to kind of dip your toes into some good shows. 2019 is kind of the breakout year. Like, this is maybe even the peak. We can talk about that. And do I want to put it a little bit egotistically? Is it the peak because you get to cast with Elfishguy? I don't know. Maybe it is. But look, what you go to. Where do we even start with 2019? Because there's just so much going on here. I think the first thing to probably touch on is the fact that this is the year that you and I started really casting together. Actually, funnily enough, I don't think we really casted together all that much up to that point, like just here and there maybe.
Once or twice.
But the situation
it was before then. It was a matter of rostering.
Yeah, but the situation was, and you sort of alluded to that a little bit earlier, with the fact that Ian was kind of moving away from casting.
Yeah,
I was sort of thinking, I'm quote unquote the best caster. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but in my head I was.
I think you were.
And I was like, I can choose anyone that I want. Like, I can take any of these guys, and if I say, hey, do you want to be my duo? They're going to say yes, because they know that's the best opportunity for their career. So I'm looking at Sniper, and I'm thinking, who do I replace Sniper with, basically?
Yeah.
And I've got, anyone that I can choose from.
Yeah.
You're obviously someone that I thought filled the role that I needed filled in my duo, because I could cast with any of those guys and it would be a decent cast, as evidenced by the fact that, working with Brainstorm in 2018 was a great broadcast, did heaps of work with Kev, did heaps of work with Mac, whatever, can work with all those guys, no problem. But what I felt like I needed was someone who knew the game in and out and was going to be the hard color.
Yep.
Karath, Brainstorm, Mac all can fill color when they need to in a pinch, but they're not hard color. So I see myself in Counter-Strike really as a hard play-by-play. I don't want to make an informed opinion on the game. I just want to do the hype moments. I want to do the play-by-play. So there was always going to be a bit of a natural issue with any of the other guys, because you would never get the read on the game that you needed to get from our duo if that was the duo. So that was my thought process when I was thinking, who do I want to pick up? And then obviously at that time, I said to you, or I don't even remember how it
No, I remember exactly what happened.
Okay.
So from my perspective, I'd already been doing it for a couple of years. And I think I'd earned my spot just because I differentiated myself from other people. And I think it's one of the reasons why I've been able to make casting work, is that being the only person who can do hard color and knows the ins and outs of it and does it all the time in a world full of play-by-play casters. It's like I don't know, it's the equivalent of like, there's 10 dudes in a room and one woman. It's just like, and they're all like trying to date. It's like, okay, you got your options open to them. Like, I could cast with anyone because I'm the only color caster, So I remember exactly what happened. Is like 2018 was wrapping up and we were going into 2019 and we're all thinking about like what duo we're going to have. And I remember like you messaging me and being like, because at that point you were still kind of like, I don't know if you're still internal. I think you were still internal. So you were kind of still you was kind of trying to roster and like decide who's going to cast with who and all that kind of stuff. So I remember you messaged me. It's like literally the equivalent of like a date, where you were like, we were like flirting with one another, where it's just like, you were like, hey, Pilly, who do you want to cast with? And I was like, well, Jordan, I want to cast with you. And you were like, oh, really? Then,
why do you have to make it sound so
like,
cringe?
Okay, I guess we could do that. I guess we could give that a go. We were like, oh, okay. It's like, I literally just like straight up asked, you're like, who do you want to cast with? And I instantly was just like, I want to cast with you.
Yeah.
Because for me, it made sense as well, where it's like, I just want to elevate myself to the highest level that I possibly can and cast with the best person that I possibly can with the most experience. And then at the the exact same thing as you said, where it was like, Jordan just did the stadium. I want to do the stadium because that was epic. And so I want to pick the person that I think I have the best chance of casting something big with.
Mm.
And I think that in hindsight, I don't know how you feel about it. I think it just is what it is. But in hindsight as well, I've been thinking about this a lot more just, in current era where I think I'm learning to drop like my ego a bit and drop the chip off my shoulder and that kind of thing. And I think that I feel like nowadays, back then there was so much meaning as to who your duo is and who you're going to cast with and stuff. But I feel like my mentality nowadays is more of what is my brand and what am I going to be able to do? I can't like ride on the coattails of someone else. Not that that's necessarily what was happening, but there is an element of that to it.
Yeah, I think it's it's a different. It's the entire scene is different now to what it was back then. It did feel like duos were pushed a lot, and duos are still pushed a lot. But it doesn't feel like it matters as much in Australia because it's like, well, unless you're really like getting on all the top broadcasts, there is no need necessarily to have the established duo. Like, unless you're doing what would be maybe the best games of your career, I'm kind of like, whatever. I think the thing is, like, and I also think the thing is, like, we've kind of done it now. It's kind of like, oh, it's not as big of a deal now doing ANZ champs with someone else. But back then, doing ANZ champs was like, well, we need to practice our duo so that we can get good together. But now it's like, all right, well, we've been casting together for fucking, however many years that it, without going to the next level and really being on those arena shows, is there that much for us to practice in that kind of environment? So that to me is kind of my take on that.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Anyway, so that all plays out. Obviously, we decide in early 2019 that we're casting together. We're going to try and do IEM Sydney together. I don't know when IEM Sydney 2019 kind of gets confirmed, but I felt like we knew with a decent amount of lead time, like a month or couple of months kind of lead time that...
I feel like it was just a general consensus that like they were just happy with the product kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like they were just, it had gone well both years and it was like, why would this not happen again?
No, not that I mean IEM Sydney was going to happen again. I meant that you and I would be doing IEM Sydney. That like we would be involved in it.
I mean, yeah, I think after 18 there was no, and after both of our like track records at 18, I guess, I guess it was kind of an assumption, but at the same time, you can never assume anything.
Yeah, so like, well, obviously at some point we find out that we're doing IEM Sydney, and this kind of ties into the rest of the year as well, because the reason I say this is like your breakout year or your peak year is not, funnily enough, because I have an ego and I think it was because it was casting with me was the greatest thing of your life. But you did get to go overseas a lot. You did a lot of big events this year. So you did ESL Pro League Asia season 9 and 10. And what was cool about these years in particular was one was in the Malaysia studio and one was in the Indonesia studio. Obviously, we did IEM Sydney 2019 and also Extremesland in China. So there's 3 international trips plus 1 big mega event. And, we're sort of, I guess at that point, I would say casting as well as we've ever casted, it felt like.
Actually disagree.
Well, look, I mean, I said, I don't think it was my best cast, but I felt like as a caster, I've grown to the point where like I can deliver a level of a broadcast that is as good as ever, let's say.
Yeah.
So
I'm just talking about me personally.
Let's talk 29. Let's talk Pro League season 9 and 10, because for you, I think these were your first overseas gigs.
Might have been
with regards to CS. So was the first one was Indonesia, I think, and then you did Malaysia later.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So Indonesia was weird because you were there for the whole time. You were there for like 3 weeks or something like that.
Yes.
And what it was I can't even recall. It was like two groups of
Asia and Oceania separated.
As well. But we were doing all of them from Indonesia.
Jakarta.
So the first week, I think, was with Mac. And then Mac left, came back to Australia. Bleh flies in for the second week, does the second week with you. And then Bleh flies home, and then I fly in. So I don't know how all of that plays out, why that all plays out, but that's how it ended up. So you are in Indonesia for 3 weeks casting Counter-Strike. And is this Pilly's dream, or is there something else going on? Because I remember you were very busy with uni work as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was fucking horrible. Um, yeah, I mean, it was kind of the dream, and I think I do kind of wish that there were still Asian leagues like that. That's always kind of been like what I wanted to do is like
Mm.
cover the Asian leagues, and it was a really good experience getting to go to Indonesia. I think casting with Blair was really fun, and I think we kind of embraced that whole um, stereotype of like Asian CS just being chaotic and crazy and shit. The problem, and the whole experience casting the league was great. The problem is that, especially towards the end of it, and casting for 3 weeks straight in Indonesia, where for anyone that doesn't know, these Southeast Asian countries are humid as fuck and always hot, and like the climate there is fucked. Um, and also there's like a fair bit of pollution and stuff like that. Like Jakarta. Never been. I don't think I've ever been anywhere like Jakarta. Like it's just the sewage and the pollution and stuff like that. There is just it's not ideal. So I actually ended up getting laryngitis and losing my voice. And this Pro League Jakarta broadcast a couple of weeks happened right before IEM Sydney. Like I think I flew from Jakarta back to Sydney, and it was like a week or something after that IEM Sydney happened. It felt like I don't know if the dates line up like that, but
It was
it was
very
something
much
like
like,
that.
because the way I remember it, when we were in Indonesia for that final week, we were already doing prep. Like we were looking at IEM Sydney 2019, and we were saying, "Oh, what are we? You know, who's the teams? What's the teams doing? Blah blah blah. What's the storylines,
Yeah,
etc. Stuff like that." So we were
yeah,
actively getting ready for IEM Sydney when we
yeah,
were still in Indonesia, which would have meant, yeah, I think it was kind of like fly back. Probably you get back on, I don't know, like let's say Monday. Presumably you're flying back on a Monday after having done the grand final of whatever ESL Pro League Asia was on the Sunday, and then like either IEM starts on that Wednesday or that Thursday or the following Wednesday or Thursday. I think that would probably been what it would have ended up being like. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean that leads into IEM Sydney, because I
yeah,
had a couple of talking points here, and one of them was that you were sick. So this was kind of what I wanted to actually talk about. It's your first
yeah.
stadium cast, right? It feels like this is the biggest opportunity of your career. You come in, you're sick, you're constantly pressing the cough button, coughing, and like I can still hear it coming through my microphone, so I know it's
You
going
can
through to the
hear it on the
stream.
cast. You can hear it on the
Yeah,
VOD. You
you
can
know,
hear me coughing.
so it just felt like while you're on the top of your career in theory, you're not able to deliver that level that you wanted.
Yeah, I couldn't perform. It was the most frustrating thing ever. Like I still feel like so shit about it, to be honest. I feel still feel fucking horrible about it. And even in the ESL Pro League Indonesia cast, like me and Blair, I felt like vibed like quite heavily, and we got along really really well.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like we talk to him less and less and less these days, but doing the podcast and stuff like that with him was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like we vibed a lot in Indonesia, and even on those ESL Pro League shows, I was like apologizing to him constantly, because I literally just could not cast well. Like I was losing my voice. I would be like getting to the middle of my sentence and my throat would just like give out and I would have to start coughing. It was like not only was I not able to project my voice at all, but I was also getting to the point where like I would get to the middle of the sentence and the irritation in my throat would get so extreme that I just could not stop myself coughing.
Hmm.
And it was the most frustrating thing because you couldn't even get through like half a sentence. I couldn't even get through a point some of the time. And like I just didn't know how to look after my voice, but all of the aircon, like the hotel told me we can't turn the aircon off. Like it's centralized and it's going to come into your room. Um, so like that we would have to turn it off for like your floor or some shit, which I don't know why the fuck it was like that. But and then obviously going on the long plane flights and stuff, there was always filtered air there, and the climate and all that shit. And that just fucked my voice up. And I went into IEM Sydney and there was no rest and recovery time. And we're doing these like quarterfinals and semifinals casts. And I just want to do like such a good job. I want to do the best cast of my life. And look, the games that we got were not that amazing anyway, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we look at our semi-final and then the other semi-final that like Henry G and like Sato did, which was
The Fnatic
like
NIP
that
one.
Fnatic NIP
Mm.
game, which went to like 60 rounds or some shit on cash, like
Yeah.
multiple OT maps. if we got that game, thank fuck we didn't get that game. If we got that game, I might have died. Like, I honestly might not be here right now. Like, can you imagine having laryngitis and no voice and doing a 60-round game on cash where JW is like quick scoping cunts and running around the map and shit? Like, you would fucking die, bro. So honestly, it's a blessing in disguise that the games that we got, I felt like they were all like 2-0s.
They were not
I think,
highlight
and
games. Yeah.
they were literally just clinical games where like one team was just outplaying the other team on a tactical basis, and it was like trade based and tactical based Counter Strike. They were just beating each other with strats, which honestly should be my strength on as a color caster, highlighting that. And I think even I got hate similar to like that green wall thing for that Liquid SK game where Liquid was literally on attack. I mean, I could see it on in the semi-final where Liquid was outplaying SK really hard and like completely destroying them. And I was literally just saying it. I was like, Liquid is just playing better right now. Look at that read. Like this game, they are absolutely destroying them. They are smarter. They're better, faster, stronger. And, you know, obviously people who are fans of SK don't like to hear that there is a team that is playing much, much better than their favorite team. So, yeah, I felt like people weren't happy with that cast because I was just telling it how it was. But,
you know, ironically, I think now that is actually kind of the style that a lot of the color casters do bring. Like when you look at like Maui or like Launders or something, they're just like, no fucks given. This team is shit. They're doing bad. They did this bad. They should have done this, that kind of thing.
I feel like so many things that I like. Okay, this is ego at the end of the day, but I feel like so many things that I did, like Skybox and all this shit, like that I did back in the day on broadcasts that nobody watched, is like ahead of its time. And like telestrator segments and all this shit that they're doing on like tier 1 broadcasts, like 3 or 4 years later, is like shit that I was doing good at. And like, yeah, and I don't know, just never got a shot to do it on like a mainstream, like a main broadcast. And I feel like I would have fucking killed that shit. But you know, at the end of the day, people get the opportunities that they do or don't for a reason. So, you know, the fact that I didn't do it is it just is what it is. But IEM Sydney 2019, and this is why I'm saying that you're talking about this being my peak year or something like that. Honestly, 2019 was my biggest disappointment. Like it might have been my peak year in terms of what I'd done, but I'm so frustrated with the circumstances that led up to those opportunities. Because you're right, it was the biggest thing that I'd ever done, and I couldn't perform. It was frustrating. It's like having fucking like erectile dysfunction or some shit, bro. Just couldn't get it up.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when I say your peak, I don't necessarily mean like the best. I mean the peak in terms of the opportunities that you were able to.
On paper, looks so good. You look at the cast though, and fucking shit.
All right, well let's move on from IEM because you know there was still at least one kind of highlight to cap off the year, and I think we both have fond memories of going to China for the Extremesland finals. Some fond memories, some bad memories. But you know, talk me through the whole process because obviously you start off with passing the OS qualifier, and at that point, are you thinking like, if I cast the OS qualifier and I kind of get in conversation, make that network, I might get to go and do the final? Did you know about the final at that time? Like, how did you actually secure that gig to begin with?
Just nepotism,
right,
and networking. Yeah, I mean, I casted. I saw the Oceanic qualifier, and it was in Sydney, and Zowie was organizing that, and the guy from Zowie, for anyone who knows him, Kang, he's a good bloke, was there. I didn't know him at the time. But Karath, I think, got me that opportunity to cast that Oceanic qualifier. And it was only like a couple of games, but I was basically like, if I fucking kill this cast and then talk to the Zowie guy and he sees that I'm a fucking sick caster, then maybe I can do the final. And I'm not even sure if he watched the cast, to be honest. But I killed this I felt like I killed this cast, and then we were just kind of like talking afterwards, and he's like, yeah, maybe like we might get you to China or something like that. Like we might give it a crack. And yeah, it ended up coming together, but I think it had very little, if not nothing, to do with my ability or anything. I felt like that was a classic, like getting to know the right person and them giving you an opportunity to go and do something cool. But that was a really fun event, I would say, in terms of like casting and in terms of prestige and in terms of like we did do good casting, don't get me wrong, but in terms of like people who watched that or like what the setup was like or what the professionalism was like, that's not a highlight for me. The highlight was definitely the trip and the time spent with the people that were there and the good memories. But yeah, prestigious in terms of prestigiousness and all that kind of stuff. It's not really a highlight.
What was the best moment? What was the best memory you have of being in China? Like I can think of no
Uh,
shortage of potential shortlisted
it's-
ones, but what was your best
so
moment?
we'll do the cliff notes of the top three. The first one was going to the event, seeing this fucking epic mega wall poster, everyone's signing it. We go up into the event. It's this fucking sick setup, and I'm looking at the stage. I'm looking at the desk and shit like that. The production value. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, this is where we're going to be casting. Like, this is sick. And then they walk us all around. Then we get this whole tour, and then they walk us into this random as fuck hallway with like a studio light and a desk and a couple of monitors fucking shoved in the corner. And they're like, and this is where you'll be casting. And I was like, what? I was looking at this arena,
You've
bro. And they're
gone
like,
from
no. That's for the
ESL Pro
Chinese
League in
broadcast.
the ESL studio in Malaysia and Indonesia, pretty good staff to the
Yeah.
stadium in IEM. You're like,
Get in the
yeah,
fucking corner.
I'm
Get
kind
in
of
the
a
fucking
big deal
corner, mate.
now. I'm a big deal now. I'm gonna go to China, cast Extremesland, probably be in another arena. Nah, hallway, mate.
And then the second one would be where Bren like
I
upset
knew this was gonna be one
Boot
of
on
yours.
train and Puppy Chulo dropped a 40 bomb or something like that. And so I got to scream Puppy at the top of my lungs. And that was a really fun cast. I casted with Conky. I don't think the VOD is out there for that
I'm
cast. And
sure it's not. I'm
I
sure that's
I'm
disappeared.
actually super sad about that because that might have been one of the fucking funniest casts ever. Just imagine Papi Chulo,
Mm.
who is now a pro Valorant player, by the way, in Philippines, just running at Boot Dreamscape, a team that they should never be beating. They ended up being better than them in the long term anyway, but just running at them on train and acing and me going, Puppy, oh Puppy, fucking Puppy Chulo, he's going fucking massive. And then the third one would definitely be we all went to Korean barbecue, and uh, these buildings. I don't know how they're building these buildings in China, but
Oh,
I remember
God.
we get like an Uber or whatever to like the location where this Korean barbecue place is supposedly at, and it's just dead. There's nothing going on. We're walking around like, where the fuck is this place? And then we look at the Google Maps or whatever, and it's like it says it's on level 1. So we walk into this random ass building. It looks like residential, and we go in the elevator and we press like 1 in the elevator, and the elevator goes up. We're all in the elevator. Do you remember this, by the way?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was
the
so
elevator
shit scared.
goes up.
I didn't want to get in that elevator because I was like, there's no way. I looked at that elevator. I was like, there's literally no way this goes to where we want to go. Like, you guys are actually cooked getting in this elevator. So I'm stuck between the decision of, do I get in this elevator that looks like I'm going to die if I get in it? Or do I stay on the ground floor on my own, be a pussy, basically, and potentially get ditched by my friends who do eventually get up to this K-barbecue restaurant that somehow comes from this elevator? Or, ultimately they come back down and collect me. But, like, I didn't want to be left on my own in China, you know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, well, you guys are all going in the elevator. I guess I'll go in the elevator. We'll all die together.
So we press 1 on this elevator, and like the elevator doors like open to a solid brick wall. There's nowhere to go. It's just a fucking brick wall. Like, what the fuck? And eventually we end up like just pushing all the buttons on the elevator. And the way to get to this restaurant is through a completely dead building where there's not even like, there's barely any light, and a like dodgy looking elevator. And you go up to like level 5, and then you walk across like a walkway to like
terrace
another
or
building
something.
entirely, like a
Yeah.
terrace. And then it's like this beautiful fucking restaurant.
Yeah.
And then we go there and we're like ordering beers, and like we're thinking like the beers are like this
Normal size
size,
beer.
and then we order like five beers. We're like, yeah, 5 beers should be good, like one of us each, and they're all like fucking 1.5 liter beers or some shit.
It's just massive bottles. I've never seen a bigger bottle of beer in my
Yeah.
life. But
The lady, I mean, it was obviously translation issue, but she's like 5, and we're like, yeah, 5,
Yeah,
5.
what do you
Right? There's
mean?
5 of us.
5
Yeah,
beers,
5. Yeah,
one
of
each.
course. And she's like, okay, bro.
I do remember it being a really good meal though. Like, unironically,
Bro, it was great.
we had no idea what we were ordering because the entire menu was in Chinese. There was like basically no pictures, so we were just like, I mean, the waitress didn't really speak English either, so
No, she
we don't
didn't.
speak Chinese. They don't speak English. There's no like, we can't even point. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just like, I don't know. We're just gonna order or like hope that something comes and it turned out to be like, you know, heaps of really nice meat and stuff, and like obviously we
Yeah.
got the beers and like exactly what you wanted at K barbecue.
It was the most
It's really
backward
good.
shit, bro. Like, how the fuck did we end up like turning that into like a fucking great night? But like,
Mm.
honestly, all of the random shit that happened made that like so much better of a night. Like, you would never think that you would struggle that much to go and find a good restaurant.
Yeah. So that was your best one, the K barbecue. That tops the lot.
I think so. I think so. There was other good ones as
Mm.
well, honestly, from that trip.
All right.
But yeah,
What
we'll be
happens in
here all
China
day, bro.
stays in China. That's true.
100%. Oh
Uh,
fuck. Okay, yeah. Look, let's not talk about the other stuff.
maybe on another podcast sometime. Geographically challenged episode 50. We'll talk about it.
Fuck me.
Okay, so to cap off the year, obviously we finish up there in China for Extremesland, and you know, like we've talked about, it was a year of many opportunities for you. But I also think like, and this may be just because I had only really started working with you that year, like closely, but I felt like this was the year where you kind of started to see the possibilities or see the dream or like really kind of get invested in it and start putting in that like extra level of effort where you were like, okay, I'm not just gonna be like some guy who knows how to talk about Counter-Strike, but I actually want to
Yeah.
be like a good caster. Is that a correct sort of read on how things were at the end of 2019?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I started to realize like where I was capping myself out and where my shortcomings were, and they became a lot more like kind of glaringly obvious.
Hmm.
And especially being held up next to the best talent, like at a event like IEM Sydney, um, or like even Pro League, even if you're on the B stream and stuff like that. I mean, it's a direct comparison at the end of the day. And if you're falling short in certain areas, and it's glaringly obvious that the A stream casters and these people that are some of the best casters, some of them would be some of the best casters. Like we did one semifinal, and fucking Henry G and Sato did one semifinal. It's like they're literally considered to be probably the best duo in CS, in the entirety of CS. So if
Certainly
you're
at the
held
time.
if you're held up next to a standard like that, it really does make you face yourself and be like, okay, like I'm nowhere near as good as I think that I am.
Yep. Yep. All right, so let's move on to 2020, and this is where, as with many of these shows, those of you who watch, a few of them will realize 2020 is the year where things tend to go downhill for a lot of the casters in this region. So we have to talk about COVID, and to me, I've titled this one "The Year of Pain" because
Really, we
while
have opposite perspectives on this
no,
stuff, I
no.
think.
So to hear me out, because I think I agree with you. I'm going to agree with what your perspective is, but this is also a year of pain in that there was a lot of difficult broadcasts. Let's just go through the list. Obviously, we had a lot of online broadcasts because the world was shut down. Australia was largely unaffected by it compared to the rest of the world. So we could still go into the studio. So inherently, a lot of the B streams, a lot of the broadcasts that couldn't be done elsewhere ended up coming to Australia, which meant we actually got, I think, more international work than we ever did.
Yeah.
Not that we went overseas to do these events, but
No.
being able to work on those events was not something that we had done very much at all. So we had Road to Rio, which was an Asia ANZ qualifier, which was actually a sick event from my memory. It was like a great format, went for like a whole week, whatever, good games, good teams, everything you wanted. ANZ Champs Season 10 and 11, ESL 1 Cologne, which we did the B stream for, DreamHack Opens for summer and winter, which were the Asia and OS events. ESL Pro League Season 12, which was like a 3-week overnighter thing, doing the B stream for that. IEM Beijing, we did the B stream for that as well. But when we're talking about all these international events, you have to bear in mind these were all overnight shows. So ESL 1 Cologne, ESL Pro League, and IEM Beijing, all of those were overnight broadcasts. And so that's where, to me, the year of pain comes from, because I remember seeing you at perhaps the lowest I'd ever really seen you during some of those days. You were in a very difficult spot in some cases. So I don't want to like specifically talk like dot point by dot point each of these events, because I think they kind of all blend into one. To me, though, I want to talk about the challenges of the year, what you thought about the year in general. So let's start talking first about, working the overnighters. What are the challenges and difficulties of that? What are the mental aspects of that? And how did that sort of affect you as a person?
I mean, it was great to do like a prestigious product, and I think I really enjoyed it. We couldn't do as good of a job as we wanted to do on it because we were so tired all the time. But I feel like we did a decent job considering the circumstances. For me, I mean, I was doing shit like because I was still studying. I was doing shit like we would get to the studio at what, like 11 p.m. midnight,
Hmm.
and then we would do an overnighter show, and we would finish up
Actually,
at
I
like
think it
8
was worse than that, by the way. I think it was more like the show would
p.m.
start at 2 or 3 in the morning. So
Yeah,
it was like, when you do an overnight show, I mean, for the context, people probably don't know, but when you start before you would like normally go to sleep, it's kind of like, it's okay.
I'm still kind of awake.
I find it a little bit easier to do the flip there. Like if I start working at 10 o'clock, you just sort of go through. But if you don't start until like, let's say our call time was like 2 or 3. I remember a couple of them being like morning shows, 2 or 3 in the morning. You kind of get to like 10 or 11 p.m. You're like, I could have a nap before I do the show. And then like I have to wake up at like 2 in the morning. And it's just like, that to me was kind of actually more of a mind fuck really than starting at 10 or 11 p.m. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so we would do these shows, and I remember some of them ending at like 8, 9, 10 a.m.
Mhm.
And we would finish up the broadcast, and most people would be going home, but I would be going into the break room, opening up my tablet and loading up my uni lecture.
Mm.
Sorry, loading up like my uni tutorial, and then start studying
Mm.
for a lot of these days. So it was fucking really, really hard. And I was very set on like finishing my degree and all that kind of stuff. So I was in that like short term mindset of like, yeah, just get through whatever's happening, and do the best you can. I think, yeah, it was really hard. It was actually really fucked. But I never really think about that, to be honest, like until you bring it up. I think definitely there were periods where I was getting like super fucking depressed and worn out because we would just be doing, it's fine if you like do an overnighter show for a weekend.
Mhm.
But when you start to do an overnighter show for like 3.5 weeks, and you never see the sun and you're like flipping your whole schedule and your whole life, it's really fucking hard, especially when you have things that are on at normal times that you are obligated to do. So that was really, really fucking rough. But I think I look at that as like, in terms of, it doesn't count. And I think that if you ask most people, the COVID stuff doesn't count, in terms of prestige, and especially with the fact that obviously a lot of these shows went to ESL Australia just because of circumstance and just because it made sense at the time. But and we hugely benefited from that. But I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks like that might have been the best year
Mm.
yet, in terms of on paper achievements. And at the end of the day, you actually can't take that. You can't take that away. It still says that on paper we did all of these events. Um, and they are, prestigious events to some degree, but there's obviously a big asterisk to that in terms of just how well we were able to do given the circumstances, and exactly why we got the opportunities that we got are not entirely based on our own merit.
Yeah, another talking point that I had around this as well was this is kind of where we started experimenting with TriCast as well because,
Oh,
everyone was sort of, well, I say everyone, it was basically what Machine, Sponge, and Henry were kind of doing TriCasts, or trying to do TriCasts over in Europe, and then it was like Stunner, Harry, and Hugo were doing TriCast there as well, and we were like, well, there's 3 of us as well. Maybe we should just do TriCast, be like the Australian TriCast guys, whatever. Because we were like on all the B streams. They were doing the TriCasts and whatever on the A streams, and then the B streams was just us. And it was like, well, we'll just fucking do it because we're going to be here all night. That was the thing. It was like, well, if you were doing it as a duo, you would have one person like sitting out and probably falling asleep,
yeah,
switching off, and whatever.
yeah,
So, as a way of getting through some of these broadcasts, and also for me, I actually thought it could potentially be something quite good because
it
yourself
was.
and I, and obviously Mac had worked together for a long time. And I've written down
Yeah,
in my notes here, I unironically actually think some of these casts were some of our best casts. Like,
100%.
I really think that the TriCasts worked well for us, and I actually thought they worked really well for those products. I'm kind of sad in a way that the Counter-Strike world has sort of moved away from TriCasting again. I think there's definitely a place, especially in like group stages, online shows, those kinds of things, where TriCasts actually do have a lot of value. So I want to get your thoughts on the whole TriCasting situation and how you thought that played out. Because to me, I thought it was great.
I think that we actually hit on something special there. But, again, it's like that's the equivalent of me owning my own restaurant and saying, 5 stars.
Mm.
So like, I don't know, bro. I felt like it was really good. And I felt like we not only had the chemistry for it, but we also had the personnel for it because I leaned completely away from doing any kind of play by play. I leaned entirely into doing things like Skybox. I leaned entirely into talking in freeze time, talking when there was the only downtime in the rounds and never speaking at any other point. And then the rest of the cast was you and Mac play by play, bouncing off of each other. Mac would flex color and you would do like hard play by play. So I felt like not only we had the chemistry, we'd all casted with each other, we all knew each other's style and when we like to talk, but we also had the personnel and we had the formula for it. And I think like we actually hit on something really good there. And I think that if we had the opportunity to keep doing that, we would be able to be like, I don't know if we could become like the best duo casters if like we had like, duos and we were held up to against some of the other casters. But I actually think if we were like tri casting versus like other people who are working hard on tri casting, I actually reckon we could probably have like some of the best tri casts.
Mm.
Like the way that we were doing it. I don't know.
There definitely was. I felt like something there.
There was something there for sure.
And for anyone that is at this point and is wondering what the hell are they talking about, these guys have like this whatever, this ego or these rose tinted glasses. I did make a vlog. This is perfect. I'm a fantastic YouTuber now. I did a vlog. You can watch it. I'll put a link, and I think that vlog really encapsulates that time period.
Yeah.
The kind of broadcast we were doing, the mentality we were in, the personality that we had, and the way that those broadcasts kind of garnered a lot of traction actually was something that I felt like we'd never really seen before. Despite doing a lot of these, international broadcasts, we've done a lot of B streams, blah, blah, blah. But these B streams kind of hit. Like people
Yes.
were really loving them.
We had great feedback. And look, I'll play both sides of the coin here because I've heard two different things from people that I really respect. And one of them has said, I miss, like, I won't name names, but one of them has said, like, oh, I miss your like your vibe and the vibe that like you guys had on the broadcast, and I think that it was something special. But I've also heard that like it was a bit overrated. Like it was a bit how would I say it? You know, everyone has these snapshots in time where the feedback's good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, it was something special. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you can look back on it and it's, a bit of a nostalgia trip as well. So there's that.
There's a
But
lot of nostalgia going on here. Yeah.
there was a few in jokes and that kind of thing. But I think like, like you said, if it was something that went long term, and again, bearing in mind it was the B stream as well, it wasn't like the mainstream, it wasn't the best
Yeah.
games, that kind of thing. I think that was the niche that
But
we were trying to
we
carve
were
out.
we were able to turn games that were terrible into something fun
Mm.
and entertaining, and I think people enjoyed that. And I think TriCasting definitely helped with that, where we weren't trying to do some like same duo formula, and we weren't trying to cast it like it was the best game ever. Like if the game was dog shit, we were just having fun and
Yeah.
talking about all kinds of random shit and make cracking jokes and stuff like that. And I think we were just having a good time because we're all mates.
Yeah. Did you have any more 2 cents to put in for 2020? I know we're not really spending much time on it, but I don't know that there is
I mean,
that
I
much else
think
to
that
talk about.
yeah, I don't think there's a lot to talk about outside of like I just wish like even doing the B streams, I just wish that we would get those kind of opportunities again, and I wish that I'd be able to do those kind of events again because I feel like that's kind of the level that the only level that I can even see any kind of self development or improvement in at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's move on to 2021 then. And, we're kind of still fairly deep in the throes of COVID. This is nothing, new. It sort of feels like there's nothing new kind of popping up, right? It's still a lot of online broadcasts. We're still
Well,
doing some stuff here.
it was like 9 months of nothing,
Yeah.
and then 3 months of like a few things
Well,
compared to like 2020, which kind of had a lot of stuff.
yeah. And what I wanted to touch on here, the only real thing I felt like that kind of came up for you that was something different was ESEA. So you started like hosting ESEA Europe and North America, and again, this was overnight, and I can imagine this was actually
Oh,
even
fucking hell.
worse
It was
for
worse
you
than Pro League.
than
It was the
doing
worst one I've done.
because you were there on your own. I mean, I guess the prod team was in Australia, right?
Yes.
But you were the only talent, so you know,
And then
again, for
remote EU and NA talent.
someone that's watching this that's maybe on the production side or not on the talent side, like you have to understand, like obviously you can hang out with the production team, but when the show's going on, they're kind of still working. So it's like when you go and sit in there and like hang out with them, it's like they don't really talk that much, you know. But like when we're on a break as talent, we're all sort of sitting together, we're having a break. But the problem is when you're on a break as talent for that show, you're the only talent on break for that show. So no one to talk to, no one to hang out with, no one to keep you awake. Just you and the guys doing the remote broadcast. So what's that like? You do what? You do 10, 15 minutes of like hosting desk stuff, and then you go and what? Do you go to sleep?
Uh, I it was even worse because it was like the show would be like I feel like the show would be like 2 a.m. would be like NA or something like that, or maybe 2 a.m. would be like EU. I can't remember. And then that would go for like 4 hours, and then that show would end, and then it'd be like a 2 hour break, and then it would be like 4 hours of the other region. So it's not even like enough to get like sleep or something like that in between the regions. And there was even times where I was doing other shows like in the afternoon. So like I would be doing like this overnight hosting, and then I would go and do like a ANZ Champs, like the Aussie broadcast, like in the daytime, and I would be like sleeping 4 hours and then going back to doing the other thing. Um, there was definitely a time where I fell asleep on broadcasts, and the timer was 0, and Chris was like yelling in my ear to wake me up. I do remember that, and then I got up, and you know what? I did the classic. I learned from the best with Jordan, where it's like I didn't watch that game at all. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to ask real generic questions. And you know what? It was a great segment. So my eyes were closed right before this timer went to 0, but I didn't watch that game at all, but I still hosted that fucking thing.
Yeah.
I think I didn't do a good job at it. I wish I could have done a better job at it. Not only did I not have much hosting experience, and I don't think that that is my strength anyway. Like I'm okay at it, but even like doing tanks or whatever now, or some of the off games that I do, I'm trying to have my own style at it. I don't think I can be the energetic, super like hype host. I think I do have to kind of lean more into being like trying to be funny or trying to have like a good vibe and a chill vibe. I just don't think I'm ever going to be like a hype host or something. But yeah, I think I was trying to do that. And I did kind of lean into a different style, and I think that worked a little bit better. I think I did the hosting job well in terms of the technical aspects of it. Like I knew the show. I hit every single point. I ran the show well. I never really made mistakes too much. But at the end of the day, I was so exhausted that I couldn't bring that hype energy that I wanted to as a host. And I think what I tried to do instead was lean into like I would try and watch the games and take notes about them because I'm color kind of commentator, and for that reason, and also on these ESEA shows, the casters do the desk and they do the main broadcast, which is what we're used to, which kind of sucks because you end up repeating the same thing again. So I thought to myself, like, if I'm a host of this, what I'll do is I'll watch the games and I'll try and take an analytical approach and think about like what are some interesting questions I could ask them on the desk and try and prompt like some good responses and try and get them talking about some different things, or like, oh, you said this on the broadcast. And I think that approach as a host, even though it worked a little bit better where, I know that a host is meant to be hype, is meant to run the show really well, is meant to do all those things. Some of those things I'm not good enough at. So similar to what I used to do when I just wasn't presentable on camera, I did the classic thing of just like, what am I good at? I'm going to lean more into that and try and run a decent show at least.
Yeah. Now, as far as other broadcasts are concerned in 2021, like you said, there was a whole lot of nothing, really. There was a lot of nothing throughout the early stages of the year.
That year felt like a failure. Like the 9 months, especially after 2020 doing all these shows, it felt like failure.
And then like the last 3 months, there's like DreamHack Open, there's Intel Extreme Masters Asia and Oceania. I'm not sure what that one was. I think that might have been like the replacement for like the Rio Major or something like that. It was just we also did Winter, yeah. So there was like all these like online shows. Again, they all just sort of meld into one. Plus the ESL Pro League conference that we did right at the end of the year as well, which was again another overnighter. So Probably not too much more to really touch on specifically. It's kind of more of the same of what we talked about for 2022. But I
Yeah,
kind of, sorry, for 2020.
yeah.
But what I kind of felt like with 2021 was by that point, we'd kind of gotten better at doing it. You know, it was less like, oh, I'm super fucking
The
scuffed.
overall level, when we would have done a bad broadcast was not there anymore.
Mm,
Like the floor raised.
yeah,
The ceiling didn't necessarily move, but I think the floor raised a lot.
yeah. Because I mean, at least I could speak to my experience. You know, I figured out the process that worked for me, which was really taking the 2 to 3 weeks prior to that to like properly shift my sleep schedule and coming into
Yeah,
it basically being nocturnal
we
already rather than
we
from
definitely
day
did a
dot.
better job at managing our energy and learning to do a good job on these
Mm.
overnight broadcasts, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, the other big thing that happened in 2021 was Valorant, obviously released, and so
Yeah.
for you, that's something that I know is quite a big deal. You love that game, and you want to make something of that game. But let's take it from the beginning, right? When you saw the concept of that game, Project A, what did you think? Because I look at you as someone, and I thought you would just be like the CS purist guy who'd be like, nah, this game's dog shit. Like, I don't want to see fucking abilities or ultimates or whatever. Like, I'm the CS guy. CS is the GOAT. Fuck Valorant. But obviously that's not how it's turned out. But at the time, what were your initial impressions on the game?
I didn't have any expectations. I just felt like I wanted to try and give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that it's kind of the opposite. I'm definitely not someone that's like a CS purist, and I have a lot of history in a lot of different games. So I think that it kind of makes sense. And especially in CS, when I was in game leading and stuff like that, I was always focused on big picture macro aspects, trying to hit those things, trying to do what the pro teams do in terms of utility, in terms of rotations. I was never focused on like at the start of my career, like I was just all aim, no brain. And I think I leaned completely the opposite way where I became like a mediocre fragger, but focused all on practice and macro aspects. So the idea of a tactical shooter with a lot of abilities and to learn something different and to show like your expression in terms of what utility and abilities and you can use and be creative with your strategies really hit that part of my brain.
Mm. So what was it like kind of casting Valorant when it first came out? Because I know you were involved in a lot of those early broadcasts. You had, I guess, identified at the time, this is quite a natural transition for me from being someone who's, pretty much at the top of CS. It's a very CS-like game. I already like this game, whatever. I'm going to try and cast it. So what were the efforts that you sort of made to try to solidify yourself at the top of Valorant when it first came out? And what were your opinions as well on like the early shenanigans, shall we say, right? There was a lot of broadcasts that didn't pay very well, didn't pay at all. And the other thing I want to point out is that it sort of felt like every man and their dog was trying to come into Valorant. Like I've never
Yeah.
in ANZ seen anything like that. I think the thing is the industry was in such a different place in 2021 than it was the last time a major title was released. So the last time I think a title like of that caliber was released, I would say it's probably Overwatch. When Overwatch came out, that was like the entire gaming world stops. We all look at Overwatch and see, is this the game for me now? Is this the one I'm transitioning into? And I sort of felt like that was what Valorant was. So, you had guys from Rainbow Six, CS, from
Yeah.
Overwatch, from fucking
It wasn't just that.
whatever else.
It was also a continuation of what we saw in COVID, which is video broadcasts and stadium broadcasts started to become less available, and I think it actually leveled the playing field a lot. And meant that even your home bedroom broadcasters who just had a home set up but didn't necessarily have any experience casting anything prestigious were suddenly able to like compete and have like opportunities and the ability to get themselves onto big broadcasts. And I think that was also part of that was the cost cutting and downsizing and all that kind of stuff was a big aspect of it as well. And I think that that actually quite heavily contributed to so many people wanting to be involved in Valorant, because before it used to be a kind of, I felt like, I don't know, this is kind of a derogatory way of describing it, and I don't necessarily feel like this, but it's just the only thing that springs to mind. In fact, it felt like more of a them and us thing. It's like either you can fuck with doing a studio show, you've done a stadium cast, you've done prestigious like S tier products, or you're someone that only does the online broadcasts. But when when COVID happened, it felt like it leveled everything out, and all of a sudden, it felt like all of these people that wouldn't be able to like compete to do some of these shows were able to do them. And then all of a sudden, it felt like, when Valorant came out after that period, all of these people had the chance to kind of say, "Oh, I am a top broadcaster," even if you go back to like 2019 or 2018 or something like that, and it's like, yeah, what have you done in comparison,
Was that like a bit of a learning experience for you? Because as you mentioned, you hadn't
Well,
really done any of that kind of thing before
I
that. So
think,
you're actually
yeah,
behind people at that point.
but yeah, so exactly when COVID happened and we went into an era of online broadcasting, it was, yeah, completely the opposite of my skill set, which meant that I feel like at an inherent disadvantage. And I think I did kind of okay adapting to that. And I've definitely done way more online broadcasts than when I started with my career. And I think honestly, it's something that I'm still coming to terms with, and it's something that I referenced before, where it's like, you know, even though I'm uh, like whole career basically a B stream caster who's gotten a couple of decent opportunities here and there, um, I think I have had to definitely learn to like drop my ego and take the chip off my shoulder, and I'm still kind of learning to do that, and resetting back to the base level of like, even if I have, better like experience, I've been casting for what, 6, 7 years, and I've got like thousands of hours of studio broadcasting experience, and they've casted like a million things. But there are still people who have picked up the mic last year and can, compete with me for shows, and that's hard to get your head around sometimes.
Hmm.
But in terms of efforts to get into Valorant, I just played the game a lot, and I tried to watch the game a lot. I even competed a little bit in the VOT circuit, and actually, I just made like a mixed team of people, and some of those players actually ended up being pretty good. Like, one of them went overseas as like the sub to go to Thailand. One of them and played in some top teams. One of them qualified to go to NALCQ. So I picked like a pretty good uh, team of players, just making a mixed team to IGL. And we ended up getting one game away from qualifying for VOT, which is like the main circuit or like the professional league for Valorant. And basically, what happened is I really wanted to play that game with my mixed team, but I had already agreed to cast it. So it was a direct conflict of interest. Once we made it out of the closed qualifier, which is that, our team was good enough to beat some of the other like, tier 2 teams or whatever. We actually played like one or two decent teams and beat them. Once we made it out of that position, I basically chose to cast, which I kind of regret. I wish I'd played, because what ended up happening was, if you know the organization Mindfreak, there was a team Mindfreak in Valorant, and my team of mixed team players without me playing ended up like almost beating them, and they were like literally on series point and should have won the game. And I was casting this game as well, which is hilarious because the team that I beat, the team that I made was like playing right before my eyes. And I was watching them literally just misplay and throw the game that they definitely should have won. And if I had been playing there, and obviously, you take the IGL out of the team, it makes a pretty big fucking difference, especially when the person that you fill into that spot doesn't play the same roles. So they all had to shift around roles, and they still almost beat this team that I think ended up coming second in like the whole league. But they ended up choking and throwing the game away. But I kind of regret not playing. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, that's where the money was coming from. And I wasn't going to make any money playing for that team. So
Yeah. So that's like another crossroads in your career where if you're maybe 5 years younger, or I don't know,
no,
would you
I
have
mean,
been a
I just
Valorant
wanted
pro
to
player?
play. I still wanted to fucking play, man. Like, I still wanted to be
Yeah, but
like,
you know
I
what I'm
could
saying though.
actually
Like,
be good.
if Valorant comes out when you're actually like hard into playing instead of like already having really committed to casting, do you end up just being a Valorant player? Like
I think
how good can
yes,
you
but
get? You know what I mean?
I think yes, but I think again, because of all the issues early in my career, I think I've learned that I would never be. Back then, I hadn't learned to like be committed to anything,
Mm.
And so, and until I rectified that issue, and I think I have rectified that issue. Like, if I wanted to go hard at playing, I actually reckon I could do a better job of it than I used to. Not in the same way. Obviously, I'm fucking old and shit now, so I'd have to be like an IGL or a coach, which is something I did a little bit of. Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, casting is so much more rewarding than where I think I would be at a player, which is what at best maybe I would be on like the team that gets like, second, third, fourth place in an Oceanic League, which at the end of the day, not to talk shit to any of those players because we cast these players and I respect them all, but at the end of the day, if you're in a minor region like Oceania and you're not the team that wins and goes overseas, you actually are not really getting
You
your
don't
value
matter.
worth out of your time.
You literally don't matter. Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes have those moments, like not really, because I never was like in a position where I genuinely could have thought about going to play professionally or play in a top team. But everyone who plays games, competitive games, I guess, when they're growing up, always wonders like, what if I was just like the best? And I definitely had those moments, but I was very much established within casting well before I could have ever gotten to a point where I would think about playing. But so I can kind of understand that mentality where you're just like, oh, what if? Like, what if in another world? But it's very hard to say no to casting when you're kind of at the top of casting already, and it's like that's.
Yeah,
like,
I would have to. I mean, I would have to throw away being in a good position in casting to be a mediocre
maybe a player. Yeah, exactly. So pros don't outweigh the cons, and so your life takes you in a different direction.
Yeah.
And indeed it did. So let's talk 2022, and this was actually a pretty good year, I thought, in terms of recovering from COVID, if that's the way we want to put it. Like, it sort of felt like things kind of started to get rolling a little bit, right at the start of the year. Actually, already 12 months ago, we would have done the rivalry event in Melbourne with Order, which, rest in peace. Obviously, it feels like a completely different era. Like, it feels like so long ago, 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Going to Melbourne and doing that event in the Order studio. They did choose a terrible name, insanely awesome CSGO tournament. I mean, I don't know who came up with that, but I could have definitely thought of a better one. But that was a hard one to say. But I liked the event. I liked the concept of it. Like, it wasn't anything super special. It wasn't anything flash, but like at the time it was, we're back into it, right? We're back to traveling around, doing some CS shows, something that's not ESL.
I mean, yeah, my mentality was like, here's another broadcast that could be of the level of like a Champs or something like that, or like a Champs LAN. And that was a promising prospect for me, because if there was more things like that, then it would be better for all of us. But obviously it didn't last.
Hi there. If you made it this far and you're enjoying the content, please make sure you subscribe. Or if you really want to go the extra mile, you can support me on buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy. There's a link in the bio.